Good morning, Appleby. I invite you to think about something that gets you really excited. For a lot of people, it could be your favorite sport, a show you really love overanalyzing, or a hobby you pursue. My favorite thing to do is reading, specifically the news and articles on social justice issues. Growing up in post-apartheid South Africa, social justice was a huge component of my life from a very young age. It was this way because I wanted to learn about the world around me and why people and systems existed as they do. Being an only child as well, I loved to sit at the table with all the grown-ups and learn about what was happening in the world. When I moved to Canada in grade 8 and joined the Appleby community, I realized that I had found my people because everyone was just as curious about something as I was. It is a blessing to be surrounded by people of such a diverse range of perspectives, lived experiences, and knowledge, yet I've found that it can still be very difficult to understand one another at times. The very thing that gives our community its strength, diversity and perspective, can also be the thing that leads it to being disconnected at times. This is why I'd like to share with you what inspired me to pursue social justice work and engage with members of our community, asking questions. When I was younger, this was natural. You see, when sitting at the table with grown people, it's difficult to discuss the effects of massive wealth gaps in a country or the need for taxation when all you've done so far is watch Looney Tunes and color in Bob the Builder pages. Something I'm guilty of as I get older is thinking that I know or understand issues with the limited perspective that I have. Even worse, making decisions based on those limited perspectives. Should I or should I not donate to certain causes? What issue should I focus on this year as one of the members of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council? What I've learned over the past few years at Appleby is that the best way to learn is by asking questions. Not to interrogate or debate, not to prove points or contradict other people's lived experiences, but to ask for the right reason, because you want to make the world a better place, and that means listening to everyone. This year, we've seen our peers step up to educate us on anti-Asian hate crimes in Canada, gender, racism against Black and Indigenous people of color, and ableism. The workshops created by students this year should not serve as a once-off learning experience, but hopefully a spark that drives us to ask more sincere questions and pursue answers by doing research and listening to our peers when they step up to educate. We have a powerful community of activists and advocates, all of which are willing to teach us more about the issues they are passionate about. So, I invite you again to think about something you're passionate about. Social justice is concerned with justice in terms of distribution of wealth, privilege, and opportunity in society. Equity, access, participation, and rights all fall under this umbrella. Social justice work needs to be done in almost every industry, career path, and institution. To be more direct about the questions we ask, we should not only be asking about how systems and norms have oppressed people, but also about how they continue to affect members of our society. Even more important, how we can intertwine our own passions with social justice work to make the world a better place. For the longest time, I was under the impression that STEM and social justice work belonged in two separate worlds, yet this could not be further from the truth. Drug manufacturing, environmental practices, and the field of medicine are all steeped in a history of inequality and oppression, with a lot of work needing to be done to dismantle it. This work starts with curiosity, a question. Sitting, listening to the speech is a group of dreamers, innovators, and leaders, a group that has the power to pave the way for society to be just. If there is anything I want you to take away from this today, it is what I'm about to tell you. It is what you should remember as you ask yourself and others questions. Firstly, your purpose of asking should be kind, to learn about the issues faced by other people. This means that we have to stop generalizing how society works based on our own experiences. It is only by learning with open ears and hearts that we can take the first step in making society just. A common pitfall is to steer conversations based on our own perspectives, but instead of this method of inquiry, we should allow our learning to be guided by those who have lived experience. In doing so, we learn much more about our peers and the world at large. Secondly, do your research ahead of time. With a community of incredible activists and leaders who are willing to share and educate comes an important responsibility, recognizing that you and you alone are responsible for your education on social justice issues. Answers for questions do not need to come from another peer. It can be in the form of watching videos created by people who've experienced certain issues or reading the works of authors past and present who describe their struggles with freedom and society. No peer is obligated to divulge their personal experiences, and you should come knowing enough to ask sincere and kind questions. No person is perfect, and you may make mistakes or hurt someone. Be open to apologizing, because when your intent is to learn instead of confronting, a need to be right that I and many people are guilty of should melt away. Third, ask about what or why. When we do our best learning, it is because we go deeper than the surface level questions. Ask not only about what systems exist that oppress people, but also ask why these systems are upheld as they are. Why do we want only some people to benefit and not everyone? Why do we hold on to systems that oppress people without reforming them? Lastly, you should be asking just as many questions of yourself as you do of society and others. The enduring existence of injustice comes from an unwillingness for people who uphold systems that perpetuate inequality to turn inwards and examine their own implicit biases. We have all grown up in a society filled with prejudice, and to assume that we are perfect as we create policies that affect groups of people is harmful. Why do you feel uncomfortable when Black people dress a certain way or walk down the street? Why do we feel uncomfortable when people speak their non-English native languages in public? Why are we compelled to hate before we understand? When we ask from a place of kindness and understanding, do our research, go deeper by asking what and why, and we hold ourselves accountable by asking the same questions of ourselves as we do others, we take a chance in building on one of the first crucial skills in social justice work, curiosity about your fellow man. To the graduating class, I ask that you continue being curious as you leave the walls of Appleby. Find your passions within your careers and industries that you pursue, and use your power to reform and create a society that is just for all. Whether you choose to lead vocally or choose to lead by example, you are now members of society that can have endless impact, and I'm excited to see what you all use your voices and power to do. To those not graduating, please continue creating a school culture that values diversity, equity, and inclusion work. The students who stepped up this year to lead workshops, lead initiatives, and share their voices through speech and art have been incredible, and will do so much to enact positive change in our school community and the world at large. I'd like to end the speech with a land acknowledgement. This land upon which Appleby College is located is a part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit. These lands on the shore of Lake Ontario are steeped in Indigenous history. Last week, the bodies of 215 Indigenous children were found at the site of a former residential school in British Columbia. For perspective, our graduating S2 class is around the similar size. From 1863 to around 1998, 150,000 Indigenous children were taken from their families and placed at these institutions, with the goal being to erase the cultural identity of Indigenous peoples via force. The abuse, murder, and suffering of Indigenous peoples persist as the systems that govern our society, such as that of policing, foster care, and many more, are used to oppress. As we gather on these treaty lands upon which we learn, live, work, and play, we must show solidarity with the Indigenous peoples of Canada by dedicating time to learning about the cultural genocide and by using our current voices and future power in society to elevate the voices of Indigenous people. We must commit to enacting systemic change with the goal of restoring the human rights the Indigenous peoples of Canada have been denied. We acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation for being stewards of this traditional territory. Please take time this week out of your busy schedules to read more. An important starting point would be the 94 calls to action put forth by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, of which only 10 have been completed since the calls were put forth in 2015. I ask that you reflect on the following question and the impact of the cultural genocide as we observe 215 seconds of silence for the lives taken by residential schools. Privilege is the absence of certain disadvantages held by some people in society due to the systems past and present that have shaped our world. How kind are we truly when we, who hold power, choose to keep our privilege at the expense of the lives and well-being of others? Thank you. Please rise and observe 215 seconds of silence.